With regards to Nirvana, I do feel that Nirvana has a very unique place in music history for various reasons. One of them, of course, being how hugely influential and immediately impactful they were once they became famous. As an individual like yourself who was very much involved in the glam metal scene during the late 80s, early 90s, did you see the Nirvana apocalypse coming, or was it really just something that caught everybody off guard?
I was working at Geffen Records at the time when Nirvana broke, so I was at the marketing meetings, and the marketing team were basically, don't do anything, it's working on its own. It's like these kids, they're like the anti-establishment, so just let it do its own thing. And then we would Geffen was on Sunset, so you'd walk over to the Rainbow and there would still be all the glamsters like sitting there like King Tut, and I was like thinking in my mind, just wait, it's nearly over here. It was just like one day it was like glam, the next day it was like everybody was wearing flannel shirts. So, the Hollywood crowd tried to be grunge at that point, but it just didn't work. The scene was in Seattle at the time. So
obviously, strictly from just a musical standpoint, when Nirvana and grunge in general became huge, it killed glam metal's mainstream popularity. But from, I guess, a more human-to-human standpoint, it completely upended the lives of a lot of the glam metalers. So generally speaking, do you know what happened to the glam metalers who went out of business?
Well, a lot of them tried to be grunge, they reinvented themselves and definitely reinvented their wardrobes. At that point in the game, it had gotten as girly as it could get. Every label had about 10 glam bands, and the next one was more glam than the last one that they just signed. And, having worked Guns N' Roses, that was, Guns N' Roses were kind of the only band on the scene that were sort of manly in that moment, Yeah. Then a lot of them became cooks and, whatever gigs they could get because they just couldn't, turn it over to that sound. And Hollywood having been the capital of that sound, people started migrating to Seattle as well, which was interesting, I think Nirvana had an influence on all the bands because they were scared. They didn't know where to go, I mean, one of my favorite stories about that period is I went to go see Poison play at the Blockbuster Pavilion, and there were like a bunch of empty seats, and me and Jennifer Perry were talking to Bobby Dahl outside the stadium, and Jennifer said, wow, Bobby, there's like a lot of empty seats here. And he's like, yeah, well, we're going out with more trucks. And we both looked at him like, what? He's like, yeah, we're going to get more semi trucks to put the stand-ups in that we can put in the seats. Yeah. So, I think all of the bands at that point felt the Seattle, takeover, basically.